Wait, what? I can do that? This is Eric Bell with Wait, What? Financial matters that matter for business and the people that own them. Welcome to this episode of Wait, What? Financial matters that matter for business and the people that own them. I'm fortunate today to have Javier Guiterrez with me, an attorney and partner at Stuart Kane, LLP in Newport Beach, California. He specializes in transactional real estate. Javier also helps clients acquire, finance, and construct and lease real estate assets. His diverse practice includes all aspects of commercial real estate transactions, including the drafting and negotiation of purchase and sales agreements, commercial leases, joint venture agreements, and reciprocal easement agreements, site development agreements, and financing documents. He has represented Fortune 500 companies as well as medium to small size companies, and that's why we have him on today to talk more about the medium and small size companies. He's got his bachelor's from UCLA, went to law school at USC, so he's got Southern California covered. Thanks for being with us, Javier.
Oh, thanks for having me, Eric. Appreciate it.
Okay. I want to ask you about just the commercial real estate sector, how it's performing in general. How do you feel?
Yeah, I get that question all the time. Frankly, how I feel is that it's doing well. It's strong. I think that their fear that we're headed towards another recession. And frankly, I don't think all the indicators are there that suggest another recession is forthcoming in the immediate future. I can tell you that when I came out of law school in 2007, I graduated right into a recession. And in fact, I was in Paris watching Lehman Brothers file for bankruptcy. And so that was a difficult time period. What you had there, though, is you didn't have the stringent lending requirements that you have now. You had a lot of people doing deals they shouldn't have done. There was a lot of people saying yes, not a lot of people saying no to certain deals. And I think now you have that. So I think from the standpoint of where we are and how we're performing, we're looking good.
You know, there's a lot of questions around the health of the brick and mortar out there in retail. You know, how is retail changing or adapting to the new economy?
Well, right now you're talking about an experience. People want experience in retail. I've written about this before, where no longer do you have a situation where someone's going to come in, buy a product, and leave. You know, it doesn't happen that way anymore. Their expectations are higher. So, for example, you'll look at many of these consumer-facing industries like retail. They try to enhance your experience. I'll give you an example of like Ralph Lauren's in New York. They've enabled what's called sensor-enabled technology with these mirrors in dressing rooms to provide different lighting for their customers. What is that doing? It's giving those customers an opportunity to experience the clothing, to see themselves in a different light, to then upload certain things to their mobile device through mobile apps that the retailer has encouraged them to download, and then they can put some stuff on hold. They don't have to buy it right then and there. They can go home and think about it and arrange their outfit. That is sort of the change you're seeing, is that there's no longer this pressure to say, come on in, buy a box, leave. It's more, come on in, stay for an hour, stay for 2 hours, experience our products, our goods. We want you to sort of dabble and put your fingers on things and really engage with our product. And then go home. And if you want to buy it from home, that's fine, because we've set up the channels in which you can do that. It's called an omni-channel way of producing goods, of allowing goods to be purchased. So you see that. And then obviously we have the large Amazon presence. But what's happening is people are adapting. Retailers are adapting. So in my industry, what I do as a real estate lawyer is I've got to make sure that the way in which I'm negotiating for my clients enables them to do that with growth, the uses that they want to have in their centers, for example. They've got to be forward thinking because they don't know how things are going to change, and they have to be able to adapt to that. And if you restrict something like a retail center, if you have too many restrictive uses or exclusives for one particular tenant, right? Then that Lululemon won't be able to have a cafe in their in their store. They may want a cafe to allow their customers to stay longer. So that's what's changing.
You know, one of the things I've noticed is a lot of multi-use development going on, and a lot of it in opportunity zones throughout Southern California. it just seems like that's a big trend that's going on. Opportunity zones with the tax benefits,
wow.
and then
Yeah.
the multi-use with the millennials.
Yeah.
They're living above the stores and the shops. What's your thought on that?
Well, number one, the opportunity zones to me are they present a great opportunity, right? But it has to be the right project. Otherwise you can find yourself thinking you're going to get a tax benefit. And if you haven't structured it right, it's not going to happen. And you'll be in for a rude awakening, when you're thinking you're gonna defer some of those taxes over time. But what is that a reflection of? It's a reflection of the government trying its best to encourage development, and that's good. That's a good thing, in my book. Some may not see development as a healthy, positive factor, but I do. When you start talking about mixed use projects, what comes to mind is the typical urban infill project and how you can utilize that dirt for its highest and best use, which is the principle of real estate. So you take a piece of dirt that could have been a project that failed 10 years ago and no one's done anything with that site for years. Well, now let's develop it as something different, and let's bring in residential on the second, third, and fourth floor, bring in some retail on the ground floor. Perhaps we have some mom and pop users that get a chance, an opportunity to sell something to the neighborhood consumers. That to me is fantastic. What we see here is we need to allow people to be innovative. If we're presenting them with regulatory hurdles that don't allow them to do that, you'll never get to a great finish with infill development. So that to me is, like I said, mixed use. It's taking an opportunity. There's not a lot of dirt left in the urban environment.
Right.
So what you do have, you got to be creative.
Yeah, I've been noticing a lot of it going on around the stadiums in Nevada, where the new Raiders stadium is going to be. Also here, where they're building the stadium in Inglewood for the Rams. It's been a lot of stuff going on around there.
Oh, and again, I'm from the Los Angeles area, born and raised. So that development is near and dear to my heart, to see the city of Inglewood really capturing the moment, right? Because that project could have went anywhere else. It could have gone to downtown LA, could have gone to Carson, but no, the NFL decided that was a good opportunity for the NFL. And I think what you're going to see is there's going to be a lot of development on the periphery of where the stadium is. And I think you'll see people benefit by way of jobs, the increased opportunity of employment across different sectors of different industries. So not just your retail industries or your food industries, but the supportive companies that support that type of use. So I think it's great. Now you got to plan for how to get people from point A to point B, and that's going to be the challenge, which is infrastructure. Right. So that's where I think the challenges are always going to start for an urban project, where you have to move people from this street to that street and not crowd vehicle traffic. How do you do that? So hopefully what we're getting to is these public-private partnerships that allow for rail transit, the metro type of rail transit. They can get people from point A to point B to a game, back to their house without having to get in a car. So hopefully we're supporting the projects in that way at a governmental level.
Yeah, long-term goal. I was wondering, with tenant preferences, modifying the commercial real estate industry, what's your thoughts around that, all the tenant preferences around there?
Expectation, let's bring it down to one word: technology. So tenant preference. What is any tenant right now, whether they're small or large, they're looking for all of the trimmings. They're looking for all of the things that everyone else has. What do their competitors have? They're primarily looking for smart buildings. Most of them, they want to know that, a lot of our, clients, for example, are environmentally conscious about, things. So is this building allowing for me to have a reduced electrical load, right? Is it LEED certified? Is it using water in the correct way? How are the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems working? All this innovation that you see now that's being brought to the end user, the tenant, is important. And then when I start talking about smart buildings, right, how is that then connected to, your mobile device, for example? Can you access the building through your cell phone? Do you still need a key fob to do so? How do the cameras work? Are the premises secure? As you can see in the news every other day, there's a bad story about some type of violent activity.
Right.
How are buildings being secured in that way? So when you think about what tenants are looking for, there's more than just here's $50,000 in tenant allowance funds, go build out your space. It's more of, is this space capable? Can it support my data needs? Is it data friendly for me? All of those things are very important to any tenant. Office, there's corporate tenants just the same as retail tenants. Everyone needs that.
Now, I know your firm's based in California, but you can collaborate across the country.
And we do. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Whether it's, we have projects all over the place. Most of our clients, the clients that I represent, are certainly Southern California based companies, but we're active. We're active in the Pacific Northwest. We're active in Texas and Nevada, Utah, for example, Oregon. These are all places that, there are opportunities out there for real estate.
I know you're a member of several nonprofits. You sit on a couple boards. I'm just wondering, what does commercial real estate organizations look at in 2020, looking out forward in 2020? What are you guys seeing?
Well, I think that 2020 will probably be more optimism, right? So, because I think that's the key word is optimism. So just to give you a couple of data points, right? So when you start thinking about how the commercial real estate industry is going to perform over the next 18 months, Deloitte did a survey and 61% of the executives in the commercial real estate space were optimistic. And to me, that means something. These are the people at a high level who are assessing that data, and they're saying, can the economy support my future growth for my company? How do I feel about that? And I think that what you have here is you have surveys showing a sustained global investor confidence in United States commercial real estate. Rental growth has increased. Vacancy levels have steadily decreased across all property types. So the total transaction volume is steady and it's increasing. I would think if you look at data just in the second quarter of 2019, there was a 2% year over year increase. Those are significant things to look at. That stuff just doesn't stop overnight. So 2020 to me is full of the word optimism, right? So in my opinion, and then with banks having more stringent lending requirements, those are those thresholds that have been established, right? Those protections that are in place that you avoid the recessions of a decade ago.
Is there anything that the organizations that you're working with and that you're part of should do during 2020 to try to help push that optimism forward or keep it going? That momentum?
I think that organizations now, if they have not adopted strategic plan of, first of all, you have to know where you want to go, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to have a plan.
Right.
So if you're just kind of waking up in the morning and walking about, not necessarily know where you're going, that's not a good thing. One of the nonprofit organizations that I serve on the board of directors for, that organization has started with 52 properties when I started serving on their board, and we've been able to increase the amount of good properties that the organization now has available to provide its customers, and the customers being low income families and homeless veterans, people that need housing right now. But you do it by understanding where you are trying to go. And so if that means you have to sell off certain assets and use that capital to take down, or build another larger project, and that's going to be more of a 3-year window before that project's done, you have to know you need to be able to, that's where you want to go. Otherwise, you can't plant those seeds today to end up 3 years from now with, say, a 60-unit project. It doesn't happen, right? So to me, from the standpoint of sitting at the level of looking at a company, looking at where it wants to be, you have to start sitting down today and look at your portfolios, understand what your costs, your expenses are, where you may need to cut to get to where you need to be, like I said, 3-5 years from now.
Speaking of portfolios, I always believe in diversification. I know you believe in diversifying also. Mm-hmm. What should real estate people do in the real estate sector, I should say? What should they do to diversify themselves, in your opinion?
Well, it depends on who you are, right? So that's a large question, and you got to consider the audience, right? Because clearly, very large companies have already diversified.
Right.
I mean, that's just a part of business for them. But that doesn't mean that the small investor can't do the same. For example, if you're investing in single-family residences, right, and you're thinking, I'm going to take down, and that's very expensive to do. It's really hard to do in California, Southern California in particular. But if that is your business model, is you maybe had a duplex or two, and you're a real estate investor, and that's what you do, consider another product type. Consider, as expensive as it may sound, consider an industrial building. Consider an apartment complex, not in California, right, in some other state. But when you go out of state, other places, there's Floridas of the world, Louisiana. Understand that there's climate issues there. So you have to go into those investments truly understanding what the risks are, but that doesn't mean you can't diversify your investments in that way. You don't always have to be tied to one particular investment group in a particular area. So if, for example, you're thinking, hey, I want to get involved with some type of a triple net investment, look to pool your money with other people who have a similar interest and go after that the triple net investment. If a small office building is something that could be part of your investment portfolio, and you're looking at it from the standpoint of, okay, I can take down a small office building, and that will allow me to do some type of creative working space arrangement, and then I can sublet or lease out the space to a company that subleases to people who want to rent space, by the month. Maybe that's the way you approach diversifying your real estate investment. Again, it's just you can't stop at one product type, in my opinion.
A lot of homeless out there, and I think about affordable housing. It seems like affordable housing still isn't affordable for a lot of people. What are some of the challenges you see around affordable housing?
Well, to me, there's a lot of challenges. One, I think we have to get away from the mindset that there's only one type of homeless person. Students right now at college. There are plenty of students, community college as well, not just university, who don't have a place to live.
Wow.
And it's frightening to understand that the rising cost of tuition, the rising cost of travel to and from whatever location you're living at, if you have a location, the rising cost of food and all these other things. And these young people are just looking for a place to have some stability while they're studying. So that's one group of people I can think of right now that you will see that. You won't think about it, but you'll see that from time to time. And then you have, like I said, you got to get away from this mindset of there's only one homeless person, the guy you see down the street and you're thinking, oh, that guy must have done something terrible in his life. You don't know that guy's story. You don't know what he's been through. He could have served 2 or 3 tours, of war. You have no clue, so you don't know what they're focusing. So something like that. And to me, what bothers me even more than the student population is the person who has a job, who has gainful employment, who can't afford to pay the rent for a single bedroom apartment, and they may have 2 kids. It's that family. That doesn't necessarily mean it's not necessarily always going to be a single mom. It's not always a single parent situation. It could be a 2-parent household. And both of those people are making what we would consider in any other state good money, but the rising cost of living here in California is pushing them away, or pushing them deeper and deeper into debt and deeper into financial crisis, a personal financial crisis. And we need to be mindful of that. And so what you've seen now is you've seen regulation in regards to rent control. But what is happening at this present moment, there are a lot of people getting eviction notices. Unfortunately, landlords don't want to have them in their faces when the rent control ordinances hit. But that still doesn't solve the problem. The problem is product. Is there available product on the market to suit different economic types of people, right? So people who have different economic status in life. And right now, you're addressing a lot of luxury units. Look at every, especially around here in Orange County, look at all these brand new, high-rise luxury rental. Those rents are not suitable for, your everyday blue-collar worker. Where are the more appropriate living accommodations for people? And so, look at that. You can look at that as part of the crisis. And and then I like to talk about the missing middle, right? That's the middle class that is getting squeezed out of the single family residence that you would think they should be able to afford. But most of them have high debt loads and can't necessarily get to that point where they can put down a down payment and have a comfortable mortgage payment. It's very difficult. So what do? They defer the opportunity of home ownership, and they continue down the path of continue being a renter. And what that does is it takes them further and further away from the opportunity to have to build equity, which is how you truly build wealth as an individual in real estate, is having equity in something and being able to utilize that.
It's funny. My son, he's a millennial, and I was talking to him. I said, "You want to buy a house? What do you want to do?" And he says, "Dad, I don't want that responsibility." So the high-rise, multi-use type of situation is what he's looking toward. Now, he's employed, makes good money. But like you said, there's a lot of people with 2 incomes and families that just can't afford to live anywhere. I see it all the time, living out of their cars. It's unfortunate. What do you think the solutions are, though, for the lower end, that type of family?
Well, you have to get, I think, like I said, I think there's opportunities, right? So you look at the major employers in the area. I mean, Orange County, who are major employers? You have the hospitals, you have the universities. There are a lot of those big institutions that are here. Can they work as an institution? Can they work with the local governments to map a pathway, a quick pathway, to providing housing for their own employees.
Right.
I mean, think about it, right? So that's what I think that's what you saw earlier in when Orange County was probably being developed, right? You saw these companies that moved here, and you had this sort of workforce housing opportunities from the Boeings of yesteryear, in Orange County and Long Beach and Lakewood. I mean, you had these developments where these larger companies would certainly support their employees. I think that's one way to try to solve a problem, is to look at the major employers and have them sort of play a major role. When we talked about student housing, essentially the universities, to me, should step up and take the opportunity to provide housing for their students. But then you also have to think about what stands in the way of ground up development. How long does it take to go sticks in the ground, project from beginning to end? And we need to expedite that process. I'm sorry. It gets to the point where you're looking at no less than 18 months, right, to get something entitled, right? And then even then it can be subject to public challenge, right? So if I get it, I understand that not every single family residential community wants to have a 4 to 5 story apartment type complex in their neighborhood. I understand that. But that's where maybe opportunity zones come in. That's where maybe something where urban infill development in an environment that typically didn't have residential housing makes sense, right? So look at the Bellaterra project and what they've done along the corridor there in Edinger. Some of those housing opportunities, what I call this multifamily type housing opportunity. You have to give the product. You have to put it out into, into the environment where people can actually access it. If it's not there, that's what increases the cost of living, because everyone's competing for the same boxes.
Well, you've gone through a lot with me today, Javier. Is there anything that you want to leave us with, or any last thoughts?
The only thought I will leave you with, which is something that's always been a concern of mine, is looking at the, I would say, high-level executives in the real estate industry and just identifying where the real estate industry should want to go in the future. And to me, that would be heading towards a more diverse workplace, a more diverse C-suite executive workplace. As you know, I sit on more than a couple boards and more than a couple organizations I'm a part of. And one of the things that we're focused on is increasing the diversity at the top C-suite level, which I think then helps to provide value for any and all company and projects. When you have a difference of opinion, you see things a different way. You can contribute in that way. Just my own backstory, watching families operate in a grocery desert, is what helped me identify my path to becoming a real estate lawyer. I wanted to understand how that worked. How could you have a Kmart building go dark, and not be replaced by another use for 15 years? How does that happen, right? Where's the investment? If you take that perspective, if you take that experience and perhaps you put it at the board level, at the C-suite level, perhaps that doesn't happen. Perhaps that box is filled a year after being dark, because someone will have that experience with that. That's all I will say. You look at the real estate industry, there's a lot of people making a lot of money, and that's great, for those people. But I'd love to see the real estate industry open up opportunities to more and more just diverse people. It'd be nice to see that. And that's across all backgrounds. And I don't just mean that from a racial standpoint or a cultural standpoint. I mean that from a socioeconomic standpoint. How many young people don't come from wealthy backgrounds who should have an opportunity to study, get an advanced degree in real estate industry, and truly make an impact in the world? I think we need to make pathways for that.
I truly agree.
That's going to be a challenge of mine, is providing them with that pathway, internships, guidance, being intentional about their involvement, and not just being somebody who goes to work and goes home and reaps all the benefits of that.
Thanks for being with us, Javier. To get hold of Javier Guiterrez, who is a partner at Stuart Kane here, LLP, here in Newport Beach, you can get hold of me at eb@wait-what.biz or call me at area code 714-743-2500, and my extension is 420. Thanks for being with us, Javier.
Thanks for having me, Eric. Thank you.